Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us here on Morning at NTV. Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director, Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, is already here to expand more on this very, very pertinent issue. The MPs getting the 200 million Uganda shillings in the wake of a COVID-19 pandemic that is wreaking havoc on both the economy and the individual livelihoods of our citizens who are actually grappling within this country. UBOS itself came out with another document. As the Ministry of Gender was telling us, we only have 500,000 Ugandan vulnerable people. The UBOS had a different figure. They were saying we do have 8.3 million people, yes, who are poor. And these people might have fallen into the vulnerability bracket as we veered into the first onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown. And as we veered into the second lockdown, the 42-day-long lockdown, they are certain that these individuals, many of whom might have fallen into the vulnerability bracket. Now you do have MPs who are getting 200 million Uganda shillings, yet this money could have gone into these alleviation schemes, COVID-19 relief programs that would go a long way in helping the people reduce on the suffering that they are going through during this COVID-19 pandemic. To talk about this, the impact, yes, and more, we do have Julius Mukunda, who is joining me right now on set. A very good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How do you do, sir?
We are there in the dungeon.
Let me interest you with this.
Yeah, it's
what do you make of what is happening
wherever
within this country? MPs are receiving 200 million Uganda shillings, Mr. Mukunda, in the wake of a pandemic that has wreaked a lot of havoc.
It is sad. That's the number one. And it's an indication that we have a group that doesn't care, in times of crisis especially. If there were normal circumstances, we could understand that.
Yes.
But in times of crisis like this, when every one of us is in the dungeon, trying to respect the SOPs, some people are finding it easier for them to profit from this kind of crisis. But I think there is one thing that, to me, that has vindicated the things I've been talking about.
Acquaint me.
That this country is not poor simply because we lack money. This country is poor simply because we have poor priority setting.
Indeed.
That our debt is going to worsen, not because not because of poor management or what, but simply because of the way we are spending money.
So it could skyrocket above 65 trillion Uganda shillings? You know, we have government.
It is not about, it is not about
Yes.
if, it's about when.
All right.
Will. It will.
Because they are trying to tell us that it might reduce.
I don't think so, because here you are when you borrow money, you want it to have returns. But you are borrowing money and you are paying to buy vehicles. It doesn't make sense.
It will never return.
This is what we call wastage. Wastage is not just get your money and throw it somewhere else. No, wastage is buying things that are not going to contribute to your improvement. So you have these MPs who are buying cars, yet you don't have enough money to buy the vaccines. And you know that the economic recovery in this country is based on a good number of Ugandans getting vaccinated. So you have left that priority. Now we have concentrated on non-priority. Secondly is, you know, that during this crisis,
yes,
you have more than 8.3 million people who are vulnerable. They don't have enough to eat.
Anymore. They are vulnerable.
They are vulnerable. Now, because you lack money, that's what is in your mindset. You say, we can only afford to give out, handout to only 500,000 households, not even individuals.
Out of 21.9 million adults.
So, yet you know, if you had money, you would have actually expanded the number. But because the mindset for you is that you don't have money, you have other things that you are spending on, you have only 53 billion. Yet if you had got this money, it would have expanded times 3 the number of people you had.
1.5 million.
1.5 million. In fact, there could be, actually there could be 2, because you already have a 53 billion already.
Makes
allocated.
more sense, Mukunda.
So you spend on that. So that's another. I'm trying to explain to you how.
And it makes more sense.
How wasteful we are. How our priorities are not the right priorities at this particular moment. We also know that times like this, you need 2 things. You need to ensure that people are treated. That's the number. Those who fall sick, and also their livelihoods, because they need to.
And those who are treating have PPEs. Yes.
So the health system and the life of an individual must be taken care of. So when you come to PPEs, then you hear hospitals telling you, Jinja, Mbali, they're telling you we don't have enough protection gears. Why? Because, we still haven't got enough money to come and help us. But you are spending close to 105 billion to buy vehicles. The least would have happened will say, okay, let us postpone. Remember, the minister said that he's going to cut ministry's budget by 60%. I don't know what we cut if we could not cut the vehicles in this particular ministry, in these particular agencies. So you would have said, fine, in this crisis, these are the things we need to do. Ensure that we invest heavily in our health system to manage the crisis.
But then you go to the ministries, agencies, departments, you go to Uganda AIDS Commission, you cut money. You go to Mulago Hospital, you cut money. You go to national medical stores, you cut money. But the 200 million Uganda shillings are like not even a point.
It. So that's another lesson. Another lesson telling us that politicians are not there for us. And I can tell Ugandans that they are not there for us. We are there for ourselves. I have told people that health center, there is no politicians going to visit it, to use it. It is yours. Make sure it works. And the only way it works is to demand serious accountability from these guys. And if we cannot do that as citizens, let me tell you, we are doomed. I pity now these our fellow colleagues who are managing this economy. Because you can put all the fundamentals right. But if you start spending in a manner that is not going to bring returns, then all your assumptions are not going to work at all. You need to ensure that you are frugal in terms of expenditure in times like this.
Indeed.
You don't need to say, we are going to get borrow all the time. So, let me tell you what is going to happen. And it's happening in Kenya. And I'm not a prophet of doom. IMF is telling Kenya, can you please first cut? Structured adjustment programs are coming back. Cut. It is going to come here simply because we are still doing what Kenya was doing some time back. So it is high time right now that we stop this kind of reckless spending.
Now, here's what the MPs are saying. The MPs are saying, 529 MPs and 26 ex-officials, they're saying they need the cars for transportation, to be able to execute their mandate, to be able to work, to be able to execute their activities. And they're saying this money, they couldn't even remove a coin because of that.
You see, that's what I'm telling you. When you are applying to go to be a member of parliament, did you apply to be a member of parliament simply because you won't have the vehicles? I can understand we need to facilitate our members of parliament because, I mean, our country. I am one person who demands actually that we should not be doing these kind of things because it has a really complicated parliamentary process. Everybody is interested to be there simply because they want to make money. But to what extent should we facilitate a member of parliament? Now, the challenge is that this is the question that is being answered by the Muserevus. And it is constitutionally because it is a self-accounting institution. By constitution, they determine how they should be paid, who should pay them, when they should pay, what they should pay on. It is themselves. And that's why I will always say that we needed an independent salary commission to be able to determine the salaries for anybody who wants to get the money from the consolidated fund. We will not be having this discussion. Every parliament that comes in, we are in these discussions. Please, for purposes of managing our money properly, for purposes of setting priorities right, this kind of behavior must stop and have somebody to determine how these bodies should be paid. So they are getting these vehicles. Don't be surprised next year. They're going to tell you, we need more, we need money. We need more to have our salaries increased. If we can't increase their salaries, they will say, no, we now need COVID allowance. They would even ask for those things. They are out of reality that this country right now, that the money we collect is not enough to finance all the needs, all the things that we need. And it must stop, I can tell you. Otherwise, if it's not stopping, I am calling upon the president to come and step into this kind of behavior. Because they are taking away resources, which resources we need to deal with the crisis we have at hand. Because right now is that, let me tell you, going back in the third lockdown is going to cause more problems.
Indeed.
Because people are suffering. Those who live on daily income, hand to mouth, people are suffering. Now, even those who had savings, their savings are drying up. So in the third lockdown, let me tell you.
Even those whom we thought had food in the villages or rural areas.
Yes. In the third lockdown now, let me tell you, it's not no longer be about border and No, even those so-called the middle class, now the coffers are drying up. So the third lockdown is going to be a very serious problem. So it's a high time that the government comes in and ensures that if you're going to bring a third lockdown, it is managed properly, especially in terms of relief for those who can't be able to work and who can be able not to be able to work, especially in terms of health management, for those who fall sick, that they can be able to get treatment, and also begin to plan how it can recover out of this, because this COVID is not going to go tomorrow. Neither is it going to go next year.
Yes.
Somehow we need to see how it can live.
Well, of course, the cars are not the only wastage. MPs are getting some 10 to 38 million Uganda shillings for mileage, only fuel.
and I thought I said, look,
Yes.
fine. Worst still, the other part of it, worst still is that even those allowances are not taxed. Yet me and you, any allowance
1.98 million constituency fund allowance. You have a 6 million net salary pay. You have between 10 to 38 million mileage fuel.
And they are going to ask for other allowance, let me tell you, simply because we are out. They are out of touch with reality. But I think what is happening with Parliament probably is a reflection of what is also happening under MDAs. If you look at the rate of how many vehicles, for example, are parked in the parkyards of some of these ministries, you wonder why we are still buying more vehicles. If you look at the things we spend on as the government, MPs will say, oh, we also need to do this. I was told that when some of these ministers were getting these posts, somebody says, I no longer need this carpet, I don't want these curtains, this chair, I don't want it, I need new things to be furnished in my new office. What does that tell you? It tells you that wastage is happening even in the other areas. So for my members of parliament, really, all I can tell you is the least you would have done was to postpone this expenditure until probably next financial year. So that we all get out of this fast, before then we can go into our luxury state of affairs. That's really what I
have individuals who are now recommending that maybe it's only the new MPs who should receive these cares, and then the old group, yes, should just
the old group, more than 70% of the MPs even never turned up. But do you know why they don't turn up? Because of some of these decisions I think Ugandans don't forget. At the time of voting, that's what happens. More than 70% of parliamentarians are not coming, did not turn up. So unless these MPs are saying that they want to go for one term only and they don't want to come back. But really, if you want to, you're a seasoned politician and you want always to come back, these are some of the things that you should start avoiding. But really, my prayer is that can we be frugal in terms of managing our resources?
Indeed, priorities.
In this time of crisis. You
have too much money going to security, Mr. Mukunda. Where is the threat coming from? We actually did think that the threat was coming from COVID-19. Unless there is a domestic problem that is brewing, a domestic crisis that is brewing, maybe rebels and so forth who are domestic in the country. Many people are wondering why we are spending too much money on purchasing bullets, which should have spent too much money on purchasing vaccines and fighting this pandemic.
I mean,
if the problem is not domestic.
Again, I think that's the discussion we have.
Because poor people who are hungry cannot fight.
At this particular moment, where is the priority? Is the priority among buying guns and bullets and tear gas and the rest?
To fight who?
But
if they are struggling and hungry,
we need that because let me tell you, Ugandans tend to respect rules and regulations.
Indeed.
A very good number of them. But they reach a limit if these rules are being implemented in a discriminatory manner.
Right.
If you find that some people don't respect them and others are respecting them, that's when the limit comes in. If, for example, that these lockdowns, if these lockdowns were being enforced fully by everybody, that we are all, because sometimes you see videos, people dancing, you see videos in clubs, and you wonder why is it that me, I'm respecting it, others are not respecting it.
Yet Chameleon is holding a concert in Gulu.
So you begin to ask, and that's when people begin to say, no, maybe I should start going out. And that is that requires now you have to have more enforcements. But back to your question is that what should be our priority in times of crisis like this? Indeed. I think this does not need rocket science. That when you lock up people, those that have been earning a living daily, need to be supported immediately. That's number one. Number two is that you need to ensure that your health management system is robust. Number three, you need to begin to prepare on how you will open up. So among those three, I am not seeing security coming in at this particular moment. So maybe now we need security to ensure that. But how much should it cost us? That's the other part. The cost. Should it be those trillions? Or there could be other methods that we can employ.
What cost and against what priorities?
Exactly. So if we don't do that, then it is a free for all.
I see.
It becomes free for all. And once it's free for all, then me and you sit back and say, okay, what is exactly is happening in our government? So I think for me, two things I've observed is that in this country, in terms of military and defense management, we are robust. Discipline, deployment, we are robust.
But social protection tools.
But in terms of governance, of how we deploy money, on how we deploy people, on how we coordinate our policies, we still have a very big challenge. And if we can't do that, it's going to be one of the key failures that we are going to register right now. So let us be very, very critical in terms of what our priorities are now. Because our priorities now were not the same 2 years ago. The priorities of crisis management are not the same as those of when the world is working normally. So I would encourage MPs to step back and say, okay, what should we do now? Right now, the first instance actually for me is MPs should be very serious on ensuring that funding for COVID is there, that's number one, and is accounted for properly. But now if you also start doing this kind of work, even those who are accounting for you, I mean, they are going to start relaxing because you don't have the moral authority to start demanding for all these things at the same time.
Does it make sense, Mr. Mukunda, that you do have the government that is asking members of the public to donate to the COVID-19 task force, and then the MPs on the other side are doling out 200 million each?
So you can see at first how all of us contributed. Yeah, I saw a policeman really giving 100,000. I was like, wow, I was really touched. But now, where are they? We have learned a lesson.
Where is that food?
Because
where is that COVID-19
because
money
we have realized
that
what we did last time was not actually accounted for properly. Actually, for some of us, we're still looking for that accountability. So even those now who are donating are very clever. You donate and demand something in return directly and say, please, I'm giving this, but in return, this is what I need. If it's not there, I'm not donating.
I'm donating 500 to the COVID-19 task force. I need some 2,000 vaccines for my workers and tenants.
So that gives us a lesson. Where is our trust in government? And I think trust is earned. So this time around, everybody has folded their arms. The private sector has folded their arms because they are like, last time things did not go well. This time we don't think that the things are going to work out. So loss of trust in terms of government, and government must work very hard to regain that particular trust. So,
because people are now wondering, how did a businessman get involved into government business of mobilizing people to be vaccinated?
He's a businessman. You see, that's the right way of it. He's a businessman. Business people have the tactic of knowing this is my investment, this is my return immediately. And by that, let me tell you, I support him because he put money and he got vaccines and he's going to start giving all his tenants. And the first thing he's going to tell his tenants is going to say, yes, if you want to be in my shopping mall, you need to get vaccinated first. I hope he won't charge them.
All right, your last pointers, Julius Mukunda, before I let you go, on what MPs should be doing to alleviate the suffering of our people during this COVID-19 lockdown.
One, put mechanism of ensuring that every single coin for COVID fund is not only accounted for in a paper, but showing results on the ground.
Julius Mukunda, Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group Executive Director, right here on Morning at NTV. The most callous development pertains to the fact that MPs have not even sought to tweak the budget since it was passed before the lockdown. It means we did not plan for the lockdown, and yet they've not sought to see how best we can inculcate more money within this budget to ensure that we alleviate the suffering of people who have fallen vulnerable during this COVID-19 pandemic. I have Dr. Monica Musenero, and she's largely going to be talking to my brother, Stephen Mbide, Friday right there in Ntinda on the modalities of this lockdown. And a very good morning once again, Stephen Mbide. How is Monica doing this beautiful morning? Yes, acquaint us.